You're listening to Tipped Off, where leaders across the service industry share insights on operations, tech, and team success, powered by TipHaus.
Hello, and welcome to another Tipped Off episode. Today, we have a fabulous guest, Allison Lawley from Stone Brewing. And Allison, if you would like to kick us into gear, could you start by just sharing us a little bit about yourself and your role as a Director of Hospitality?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name's Allison, and I have been working for Stone Brewing for about 8 years, actually. This January, I just had my 8-year anniversary. So I've been in hospitality my entire career, since, starting at 16, bussing tables, working my way up. And I'm currently the Director of Hospitality Operations here at Stone Brewing, so overseeing our 8 locations, plus tours and merch and all of that good stuff. And really just kind of behind the scenes is what I like to call my job. A lot of communication. I manage all the systems that we have, our tools. Just keeping the train on the track is kind of my specialty there. It's crazy business, but I love it. So
It sure is. The important stuff is what happens behind the scenes. Tell me, for those of listeners who may be familiar with your beer, but not your physical locations, where are you located at? Where are those 8 locations?
Yeah, so most of our locations are in San Diego County. We have 2 large format bistros, one that seats 1,100 guests, one that seats 800 guests within the San Diego County area. And then we have 4 tap rooms, one out in Richmond, Virginia, one in Pasadena, 2 in San Diego County. And then we also have company stores, which are attached to our bistros, but actually operate as separate business units. So they're doing merch and beer to go mostly. But yeah, in total, we have 8. And then we have a licensed airport location at the San Diego airport.
There you go. Okay. And I will vouch if you get the chance. It's the World Beer Garden. Which one is your Escondido location, right?
So there's both Stone, World Bistro and Gardens, and then
Okay.
Escondido and Liberty Station. Liberty Station's down in San Diego proper, right next to the airport. And then, Escondido's up in the Escondido area.
Well worth visiting if you get the chance. I mean, you had that. The garden was just gorgeous. It looks like you spend more on landscaping than I spent on my house. It was exceptional. That place
Lots of
was
landscaping.
Yeah. Maybe that falls into the day-to-day operations, right? The things behind the scenes of everything. So
All of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a busy job, I'm sure, to keep things running smoothly. That place was busy and fabulous. I loved it. So from an operations perspective, Allison, tell me, what are the biggest challenges? What are you facing right now? What do you think your hospitality teams around you or in the neighboring San Diego area? What's really hitting everyone hard right now?
I would say slim margins with the rising cost of food, with tariffs happening. That's on our merch side. We feel that on our merch business that we have there. Increase in wages. We are in the great state of California, so our labor always goes up every year, and it tightens those margins. So that's definitely our biggest. There's also regulations that are getting changed when it comes to tips and things like that. So there's a lot that I think hospitality always has to deal with, but I would say kind of out of COVID, we've kind of seen this constriction, and with the labor, the food costs, like everything is just kind of all at once. And you have a different labor pool, I think, than before COVID. So I think that is also a difficult thing that hospitality is trying to wrap their head around and do what we can to get by and make sure that we can still keep our doors open, but still make a little bit of money.
Yeah, no, that's it. COVID shifted. I mean, the hospitality has always been difficult. I think we tested how difficult we could make it post-COVID, of course. And now we've got a number of challenges. And it's interesting to hear you on the merch side. I don't think of hospitality brands as that being a major revenue driver, but is that a significant portion of revenue for Stone Brewing?
It's pretty big. It's over $1 million that we do a year.
Wow.
It's actually probably closer to 3 million. Our one location is about $1 million out of their location alone. And so it's probably about a 3 million. And that's even after we don't have e-com currently to sell. So that's all just in-store location. So it's a pretty large part of our business and always has. We have some pretty fantastic merch and kind of pride ourselves on our merch. So it's a big part of our business for sure.
I love
and
it.
so tariffs are right there along with us. So, everybody gets their stuff from overseas most likely, even if you're getting vendors that are local. they're getting their stuff from overseas. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that cost gets passed on regardless. And wow,
yeah.
okay. Well, that's a massive chunk and an additional challenge for you to add on to your plate right now with
Yeah.
it. You touched on labor pressure, obviously hot button topic right now, and everything continues to be kind of a major theme. The gig economy impacting it, of course, macro conditions of the economy and people's fears around that. But labor pressure in general, what have you found? The big piece that we're seeing from operators is retention is suddenly come back into focus. In my opinion, should always be in focus, of course. Much easier to keep great talent than to go find new ones, train them, recruit them, do all of the fun things. But what are you finding besides wages? That's an easy answer. Let's say, oh, well, if we just paid them a lot of money, they would stay. Of course. Are there other avenues you're finding to relieve some of the pressure? Are you able to build a culture there? Are you able to do some items that really allow you to keep your labor retention high while keeping your overhead to a reasonable level?
Yeah, I think it's all about engagement with your team, communication, engagement. If they're showing up and they have zero fun at work, they're just showing up to collect a paycheck, get some money, go in their own section, not help with the team. I think all of those things that you're not going to have a really great culture within your locations. So we really pride ourselves. It's a big thing within Stone Brewing itself, we have a culture action team that's cross-functional.
Nice.
That these are things we talk about every 2 weeks. Like, how can we do things across all departments, but then also specifically within your own department? How do you keep that culture alive? So I think a big part of it is just, actually having conversations with your team,
Yep.
doing check-ins with your team, communicating, over communicating. You can't communicate enough in hospitality because everybody's getting the information in different ways. When they go home after a serving shift, they don't want to hear from, anybody at work at all.
Sure.
So
Sure.
you got to have different avenues to get them information, and make sure they know the why. And I think that's a big piece of it as well. We can all sit here in hospitality and say, follow these steps of service, do these things, collect your money,
Sure.
and go home. But if you don't tell them the reason why, they're not going to buy into it as much. So I think the communication being, having that culture, are very much big pieces of the retention side of
I
things.
love
And
that.
you can't do it all with wages either, because
No,
you
agreed.
still have a business to run. And if you just pay people whatever they want to get paid, you're going to be out of business and nobody's going
Yep.
to have a job.
Yep.
So
Consumers only handle a certain price point, even for fabulous beer, right? So it's
exactly.
a tough market on it. You touched on a culture action team. Tell me a little bit more. How many individuals? What does that look like? If someone out there wants to start a culture action team, what is that? How did that get going?
Yeah, it was actually started by our co-founder back before I was even with the team. So it probably 12, 15 years ago. Our co-founder, that was kind of his focus. Is our other co-founder was the beer guy, the sales guy, all that stuff. He was more like, how do we make sure the team is all gelling well and everything. So he kind of did a world tour. It was basically coming up with our values, our core values. And, this group kind of all got their heads together to come up with their core values, and then went to each department and, hey, these are our core values and these are why we're having our core values. So every 2 weeks we meet, we talk about recognition, we talk about, how we can keep the team, front of mind, how we can build, do different events for the team building events where it's cross-functional. It's not just the hospitality department. It's, getting sales out there and production and everybody having a happy hour. So it's really just, getting those people. We have about 30 people, across the country. A lot of people are remote. So they're in the Midwest, they're on the East Coast, they're, in California. They're from all different departments. So it's really just all of us getting together and saying, hey, how can we keep culture top of mind and make sure, that doesn't get lost in the day-to-day business of everything, which is very easy to do.
That I love that, because that's exactly, everyone wants to have a great culture, but I mean, you have to actually do the work, right? You have to set aside the time, you have to set aside the team. It's easy for culture is one of those mysterious, ethereal things that, oh, we'll get to that next week or we'll do it later. Right now, there's a new fire on. We got to put this fire out first. And there's always fires in the restaurant industry, right? I mean, there's never going to be a time where there's not something driving it. So I love that. That's a great piece. And anyone listening, get going on it. I mean, that's a way to make sure you're keeping staff around and having a great time with you. So how important is it, wage pressure, diving right into, like, how important is pay and tip transparency? Let's say wages for back of house and front of house, of course, especially in California without a tip credit. And then tip transparency. How important is that to be upfront, transparent, making sure that you're working, building that trust with the teams as, expectations of this all continue to rise as we look forward, right?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important things is people want to know how they get paid and why they get paid what they get paid. And if you don't have that, I mean, that's ultimately what they're coming to work for, right? They're here to make a living. They're here to just like all of us are. So I think if they don't understand how tips are calculated, distributed, it just creates suspicion. They won't have trust in you. Clearly communicating the tips, how tips work. We're on, we don't do the individual tips. We're on tip pooling. So it's a completely different thing because, before we joined TipHaus, everything was done with an Excel spreadsheet on tips. So, right. So you have manual entry. The team could not see their tips. It was just every 2 weeks, their tips are on their paycheck. And so that was one of the main reasons we went to TipHaus, is because having that transparency is so important for the team to be able to see. They can dive in there and see anytime they want to how much they made on a shift. And I think it's important for the back of house as well. It's like, they're carved out and part of this as well. And generally that's not the case. And they don't really get to see into that as well. But now they have that opportunity. And I think it just creates more trust between, the employer and the employee when you're able to share, full transparency into their pay.
Agreed. And you touched on it, which is it's ultimately the reason for everything. Culture and all thing. I mean, I look at that with TipHaus. I love my job. I love this company. But if I wasn't getting paid, my interest would fade pretty quickly, right? So that's a perfect piece. And now let's pivot it into OBBBA, or One Big Beautiful Bill. This is something I've obviously had to do a lot of conversations and education around. We host lots of webinars and things of that nature. There are still a multitude of questions. Interestingly enough, I saw it in a good friend of mine. They're a hairstylist, and they weren't aware of this. They weren't aware that their tips were eligible for it. So talk to me, from your side, how is your staff handling it? Are there operational challenges coming to you? What is your leadership team looking at on making sure that your staff is prepared? They're getting their maximum deductions. They're also understanding the law, which is admittedly convoluted and a little mislabeled.
I think we're all trying to do that. I think we're all trying to understand the law.
Yeah, I would agree. 2025 particularly, where it's, retroactive, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's us as operators have to realize, like, there's the headline and then there's the reality.
Sure.
And especially with our team members, they're going to see that headline, no tax on tips, overtime, all that stuff, and they're going to run with that, right? So I think it's our responsibility as leaders, and what we've done is do a one-sheeter. This is not something coming from our side. It's all on the team member to handle. On their side, it's not anything that the employer does, which I think a lot of them think, oh, the employer is going to handle this. They're going to figure out on the tax side of things, but it's not actually the case. It's all based on how you report and all that stuff. So what we've done is taken our people department, HR team, has put together a one-sheeter for all the team. And we've ensured that every single person that is part of tipping or gets overtime, any of that stuff, they are actually getting a one-sheeter of everything we know about the bill and how they can handle things on their side. It's a perfect time to do it because the W-2s are out. People are doing their taxes, all that good stuff. So we're ensuring that they have that communication from our side. Hey, this is what the bill says. This is what you need to do on your end. And then just passing that off to the team and letting them know if they have any questions. We can answer as best we can, but we're no tax experts as well. So we got to make sure that we're not giving them any false information. So
I think it's great. And the irony, of course, is there's really no perfect tax experts around this, as it's the first time anyone's done it, right? It's
exactly.
Does it get separated out into box 7, box 14 on the W-2? Does it not? And you use an app to calculate it, all of the fun things. And let's just hope nobody goes to jail for trying their best, right? I mean, that's kind of where it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But that's a great way to do it. Overall, any sense of, like, is it more confusion? Is there a little bit of happiness on the lack of, federal taxes being taken out? Or is it just kind of, okay, this is the new norm?
I think it's more, this is the new norm. I think, it's gonna really depend on those team members that, have families and multiple incomes coming in and kind of how they slice and dice it all. But generally, we have another thing we call at our locations. We have a bistro council. So we've been talking about this for a while with them. And it's basically a select group of people from the different departments within our bistro. And they sit with us once a month and kind of there's concerns, we share anything we have for them, just to, again, keep that conversation going and get their buy-in for everything. So from what we've heard from the team, there's not too many questions, but I think it's just kind of individualized in how people are handling it. But yeah, on our side, we're just trying to provide as much information as possible that we know we can share, that makes the most sense for us without us being, H&R Block.
Yes, correct. Yeah, trying to avoid that business altogether. I love there's a theme here of committees and action groups and things that are getting together. I'm going to ask you a question. I may tee it up for you there, but from your perspective, listeners out there, particularly those on the operations side of the equation, what's one operational action item that you would give them? If you had to boil everything down, or if you had the most important thing, you said, hey, on operations standpoint, make sure you do this. Other restaurant operators or hospitality experts out there, preparing the team for what's coming and how we're looking at things, what it looks like coming forward. What would yours be? How are you advising, the rest of the operational world together? One phrase, one sentence, one task to go do to prep themselves.
I would say embrace technology. Technology is not slowing down whatsoever. And that's going to look different for all the different operators out there. You have big corporations, you have small restaurant groups with multiple different, venues that they have. You have mom and pop places that, can't actually do all of the technology piece of it. So I think it is embracing the technology where it makes sense for your operation, knowing that technology has to be part of the discussion these days. It has to be, for efficiency reasons. You're tightening up on labor. That means you need to be out of the office as a manager. You need to be on the floor, making sure everything's going there. So you can't have operational things that are going to hold you back and could be helped with technology. I think you just have to embrace it, because it's a train that's not stopping whatsoever.
Sure.
And it's probably going to get crazier and crazier. We have a little robot that like buses our tables here at Liberty Station. At first the team was like, I don't know about that. Like, you're trying to take our jobs and put robots in the locations. It's just one. But now they love it. They absolutely love it. They load it up with all their bus tubs, send it back to the dish pit, unload it, send it back. Our guests love it. So it's even little things like that where it's like, oh, the team might not be okay, but they want to hear the why. Like, why are we doing this? This is a fun way to embrace technology, all of those things. So I think it's communicating that technology, why we're doing it, and just keeping the train moving with anything technological.
I've got to ask, does the robot have a name? Has it been named yet?
Her name is Servy. Yes.
Servy.
Servy. Yes. She plays little music as she goes through. The guests love it. They think it's all right. Every time it goes through the dining room, they're like looking at it. We've got it wrapped in our Stone Brewing. So
nice. I love that. Okay. That sounds like a good way to embrace technology, all the way in with merch included. So
exactly.
Allison, if you've listened before, you know what's coming. 5 questions I always like to ask, every operator. The biggest piece here is I like to see the change over geographic areas, over different full service versus quick service, all around. And I like to see kind of the different responses or the trends where things are very much lining up. So the first is always the easiest, usually I should say, but it's going to be, tell me, what is your favorite restaurant brand, restaurant concept out there right now? And it cannot be something that you are employed by currently. So Stone Brewing is out, unfortunately.
That's good. I'm sick of our food anyways. I eat it every day. That's a hard question. I am actually a little bit of a homebody, so I don't really go out too much, but I do have some favorites. We do have, living in San Diego, we clearly have some good food around here. We have some really good, like, San Diego-based restaurant groups that we have. One that comes to mind is Kettner Exchange and Whaling Bar, and it's a restaurant group and they just do an excellent job. Its service is always good, food is good, ambiance, all of it. But one of my favorites of all time is Din Tai Fung. I love Din Tai Fung so much. Whether I'm going there, whether I'm getting delivery, it's always good. It's the consistency, which is key for me, and in a lot of restaurants, is key. Their service when you go there is great. I've been to the one in Shanghai a few times out there, and even out there, it's wonderful. Yeah. So I've been a long time supporter of Din Tai Fung and love that place so much that I think they just nail it.
They do. They're a well-oiled machine. They're a great customer of ours. I mean, they are machines though. I could not like takeout versus dine in. The takeout is perfectly packaged. Everything is like it is flawless. You do not have any difference of experience no matter what location you go to, what time of day you go to, takeout, dine in, big party, all of it. So I can totally track that. And yeah, San Diego's spoiled for some great food options. Um, Tell me, I like to look at what's coming down the road. Obviously, we talk about a lot today. What are you preparing for? What were the lessons of last year? What are you paying attention to coming up? If you zoom out and you say, okay, well, what do we need to start getting prepared for today that's not going to occur for 2 or 3 years? What does that look like? Is this labor continues to increase? Is this that, technology continues to adopt? But what are the items that you're seeing several years down the road that you're already starting to keep you up at night, or you're having conversations in several of your committees and action groups about?
I think it's how do we're getting a lot of new people coming into the hospitality world. I think, as I mentioned earlier with COVID, we saw a lot of long-term hospitality folks go into another career path. And that has completely switched over the pool for our team members, and who we're picking. We have a lot of people that have never been in the restaurant industry before, which is a normal thing anyways. We were always used to it. It's, while you're going to college, while you're doing restaurant jobs. But I think we're seeing way more of that now because those long-term hospitality folks are, got out of the business, pivoted, did another career change. So I think kind of maneuvering and how you look at hiring these days and vetting and really hiring those people with good attitudes. You can train them on hospitality. You can train them on steps of service. You can train them all those things. But hiring for great attitudes, people that really want to learn, I think we have to get used to that side of things these days and be willing and make sure we have our training, in place, and that they get good training and we teach them all the good habits. If they go somewhere else, they can learn the bad habits. But I think that's really one of those big things, besides all the other things I already mentioned with, technology. I think is you always gotta have that top of mind for you as well. And then, with compressed margins, you got to get creative. So creative without shutting it down and just raising all your prices, because I think that's what we're seeing a lot of places is just raising prices to cover the cost, and then people aren't coming in. And when you have high prices plus you're taking back on labor, now you have really high prices with shitty service, and that just doesn't really go well.
No, you're killing the experience, and it's value at the end of the day, right? From a consumer standpoint, there's lots of ways you can deliver value, but value is what's expected.
Exactly.
And so the price, as that goes up, value, whether that's great service, better food, whatever it might be, it has to improve alongside of it, or we're getting a disconnect there. But I love the idea on training, and I couldn't agree more that I think, great work ethic and a good attitude, and man, I can let me mold that into something great, right? That's how I originally got started in the service industry. I knew nothing, and Brinker did a great job training through it, and that started my long life love of hospitality. But it also
fellow chilihead.
Yeah, exactly that. There you go. They did a great job.
They did. They taught me a lot of stuff right when I started in this world. So
yep. The 2 minutes, 2 bites is always something that sticks in my head.
Still in my training material. Still in my training material.
It could be. It's the most noticeable thing I pick up when I go to a restaurant, that they don't observe by that. They don't adhere to that. And it's just like, man, I would love a ranch right now, and I didn't realize it till this moment, right? Whatever it may be. But
exactly.
I love it. Okay, so tell me, if we look at 2 industry trends, and you've chatted a bit, and I love the robot example. Feel free to recycle that one, or this might get tough for you. But I'm always a fan of the trends that are going on, and particularly of the operator mindset. So tell me a trend that you're embracing, that you say, hey, we see this, and we do think it's here to stay. We're going to lean into it. We're going to dive into this. We're going forward with it. And then one that you look at and say, no, that's a fad. Stone Brewing does not need to even get distracted by that. Let it sail right on by, and we're not going to jump into that.
Yeah, again, I hate to repeat myself, but technology really, that is the trend that I believe in. I think on the opposite end, where there can be some tech out there that just it's just steps to feel like we're being innovative, but it's not helping the actual innovation or the spirit of the operation or the steps of service or anything. It's just tech to be tech. So I think you have to kind of vet everything out there. I love, we use GoTab as our point of sale, and I do a lot of reference calls for them, and it's always interesting to hear other operators and how they're using it and what they're looking for when they're looking to change over to a point of sale. And just giving them my experience, like I
Sure.
like to have a point of sale that's going to have a lot of flexibility
Yep.
because you never know from day to day how things are going to change. So based on call outs, based on all sorts of things. So I think, again, it's the good and the bad of it is embracing that technology, but make sure it makes sense for your operation, and don't get into the weeds with the ones that don't, and just to have some sort of a technology.
That's a perfect answer. I think that makes perfect sense on both fronts with it. Is technology can be both a trend and a fad, right? It can be both of those things at the same time. And it's you as the decision maker that has to decide which is which. So,
Yeah.
final question for you. For some people, this is the toughest one. Many, this is the easiest. Depends on your willingness to share. Depends on how long you've been in the industry. You've been in a while, so you may have some good ones. But it's going to be a hospitality horror story. And have you ever witnessed, or were you a part of one, just a true hospitality horror story? And were there any lessons that were learned from it?
Yeah, I saw this and I was like, man, I must have blocked all of those horror stories out because like nothing, you would think like something comes straight to mind after being in the business so long that something, what I can always remember is my days as a chili head is that I dropped an entire tray of fajitas onto a guest. So that was definitely a horror story, and that'll teach you to make sure you
Yeah,
are,
seasoning, hot plate and
carrying
all.
only what you can. Yeah, exactly. So
Oh
that was
no!
definitely, it's interesting. I think COVID was a huge learning lesson for all of us.
Sure.
It kind of, you had to pivot so quickly and figure. I mean, for us, we had to go through 2 rounds of layoffs. Basically, we laid everybody off. We had to get scrappy. Then we rehired people. Then we had to lay people off again. And it's just, I think through that, it really taught you to become nimble, to make sure you're flexible, to
100%.
kind of look at the people that you're putting within your organization and make sure that they're the type of people that can get scrappy and that do want to, hustle when needed, and when we have to make those decisions. That I think that was the biggest lesson for us. It kind of gave us a mulligan, which you never get in
Yeah,
the hospitality world,
that's a good way
which
to look
was
at it.
great, to be able to kind of shake it all up. It wasn't great, obviously, in our industry and for the world, but it's a positive way to look at it. Is like it did give you a mulligan to kind of relook at everything and how you want to operate moving forward. So, and again, I think that's where the technology also just
I
jumped
agree.
in
I agree.
pretty quickly. So,
Uh,
I would say COVID's been the biggest horror story, but
That
it all kind of worked out. So,
of all the people I've asked this, interestingly enough, I haven't gotten it, but I agree. It's the ubiquitous horror story, right? It
yeah,
equally facing all of us. And you mentioned like technology, it forced adoption of technology, right? If you were savvy, if you were paying attention, like consumers were forced to adopt it at that time. So restaurants had an easy, frictionless way to introduce it that consumers would be understanding of, or respectful of at least. And then
we
similarly, totally agree
we
on like,
tried.
yeah, agreed. Consumers with an asterisk next to it, right?
Yeah.
Apples do not apply to the statement. So, and then I think the follow on though that I really loved is the mulligan concept, which is it forced you to learn a couple things and gave you a chance to reanalyze everything. Not that everyone took that opportunity, but I really do think that was present, and savvy operators hopefully picked up on that. So, Allison, this has been a delight. I really appreciate you jumping on. And final question
Yeah.
for you: even though you don't sell merch online yet, if people wanted to learn more about Stone Brewing, where would they go?
Stonebrewing.com. Or you can follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, all the good stuff. TikTok, I think we actually just got a TikTok, which is
Nice.
kind of funny because we were a little behind on that. But you can't do anything without TikTok these days.
Agreed.
So yeah, all of our locations have their own handle. You can sign up for our emails, which we send out good amount of emails of kind of what's happening at all of our locations and everything. So we are out there. Come get a beer, can eat some
Yeah.
food, buy some merch.
All of the above
take
with it.
great
And I was going to say, if you're in San Diego and you somehow haven't been, go get over there. And everyone else that loves to travel to San Diego for weather, conferences, what be it, I can vouch personally that it was an exceptional site, and go check it out. So, Allison, with that, I'm going to sign off and give you a massive thank you for attending today and joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Kirk. I appreciate it. Good time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Tipped Off, the podcast for the service industry. For more tools and insights, visit TipHaus.com.